just saying, I really want one of those no money, no problems shirts. Like, no joke here, I legitimately hope that's something that they're selling on the Star Trek, like, merch store. Though, wouldn't it be weird to sell that? I really just think they should give it away for free. Hello, interwebs! I hope you're all doing well, and I am here yet again to talk about the second episode of the 2-episode premiere of Season 5 of Star Trek Lower Decks. This episode titled Shades of Green, which of course is not only referring to the Orion focus of this episode, but also to the classic seminal Star Trek The Next Generation season finale, I believe of Season 2? Called Shades of Grey, which was ultimately just a clip show episode for the series, and frankly, one of the, I don't even want to say the worst episode of the series, you could argue it, but easily one of the most forgettable episodes of Star Trek, which is funny considering it's all about memory. Anyways, that has nothing to do with this episode whatsoever other than being like a fun little reference, but let's actually get into reviewing this one. As per usual, I will stay spoiler-free and sort of a general overview of the episode for a minute or so here, and then I'll get into some specifics in just a moment. But staying general, this is another one that I really loved for the same reasons as the premiere, which is the fact that this is a huge Tendi-focused episode, and one that kind of deepens her relationship with her sister, which I really loved. We've gotten some focus, obviously, on Tendi and her relationship with her family, but for the most part, it's sort of been background in terms of exploring Orion culture generally, both last season's episode where we went to the Orion homeworld, as well as the premiere episode where Tendi was off doing pirate stuff. But here we really dig deeper into her relationship with her sister, and it's honestly, frankly adorable and has some really wonderful stuff, both thematically and just characterization-wise, that I really adored. So, Tendi, my girl, is still getting the love, and I am here for it. The rest of this episode is also really fun. The setting on the planet that we get for this episode is a planet that has just gotten rid of capitalism and is celebrating its now post-scarcity society, which is absolutely hilarious and very based, though it does have some fun kind of little subtle criticisms of the problem at the core of sort of Star Trek's sort of main idea, which is that it didn't so like the Federation and Starfleet didn't so much as eliminate capitalism as found a way to not require capitalism, which kind of goes to a lot of the sort of neoliberalist assumptions of Star Trek generally. That's a little bit too much for Lower Decks. I have essays where I could talk about that as a thing, but there is a little element of that, maybe not so heady way of thinking about it, but little element of that sort of critique of like, yeah, they're getting rid of capitalism, but not really. It hasn't required a societal shift. It is a thing that they just technology-wise grew out of, which still presents a little bit of problems. And the show presents that in kind of a very fun way that stays focused on the Mariner and Boimler part of it and is very funny to boot. Just me over-intellectualizing everything. I enjoyed it. And it goes to why Lower Decks is secretly a very political Star Trek show. Something that I don't even think most people would agree on, or even Mike McMahon, the showrunner, would agree on, but I certainly think is the case, just given the themes that it goes with. Anyways, now that you're all bored and hate me for getting my woke politics into Star Trek, let's get into my spoilers. So if you have not seen the episode, jump ship here. Alright, so like last episode, I'm going to kind of just talk about the separate storylines of this one because they're all pretty standalone and don't really cross over too much. So let's focus on my favorite one of the episode, which is the Tendi storyline. We start off in a really fun way where we get to see Tendi and Derica breaking into a Blue Orion hideout, and it's revealed ultimately to be a holodeck recreation. But I loved what this does where like she has like one of these like empanada sort of looking things that she drops onto it because the holodeck program is just on a table, and it still affects what's going on in the hologram, which I think is really funny. That's clever and not something I've seen in Star Trek or really anywhere, which I think you could have had some fun exploring that idea of like a miniature holodeck that you were like fucking with like bigger stuff that you have going on. But I also love this adorable thing of almost feeling like two sisters having a sleepover or like an up late party with their mom coming in. It's like, all right, that's enough of the war planning, but they're war planning. I don't know. That was just like, it was very, very cute and way to build the sisterly bond here. There's something to be said, like maybe it's a little bit darker, like, oh yeah, they're just being cute while they're making war plans, but it's a comedy. I adore it. It's very, very adorable, and their relationship here is really nice. And I like that, she has heartburn, Derica does, and it sort of gets Tendi curious. So she sneaks into her sister's office and watches some of her videos to figure out what she's hiding from her. And I also love that Derica is just very proud of seeing her sister. I will say this feels a slightly, I don't know, maybe not. I'd like to hear your thoughts. There's a part of me that's interested in, Derica sort of saying, like, I like Tendi being around. She's a lovely sister. I adore her. But she's also kind of, last episode, I should say, keeping Tendi there against her will. Now, Tendi is staying of her own volition, which kind of makes this work a little bit better. But Derica did sort of keep Tendi against her will last episode, which, I think it works just given Orion's society is very like, oh, you do one for me and I'll do one for you, sort of, capitalist based or at least economy based, I should say. That's the wrong way to do it. You know what I'm trying to say. I let me not over intellectualize it anymore. But so I think it works. It was just one of those things like, is that a mischaracterization? I think it works pretty fine. But we also learn that Derica is pregnant, which Tendi gets sort of concerned about. But she also is sort of upset when Derica does come in and doesn't tell her that she's pregnant. And Tendi wonders if she's not being trusted, but also is overly concerned for Derica. But they do get called in front of the Orion Pirate Queen. I love that the Blue Orions are now calling themselves Azure House, which is a very fancy way of saying blue. And I also adored the Blazzards that the Pirate Queen has. Just its yell going, "Wah!" was, I nearly died at that noise. I don't know, this is a thing that's happened a few times in Lower Decks where they just have creatures just making weird noises, and it makes me die laughing every single time. There was one they did back in the Peanut Hamper episode with the bird people, and it was that joke where the bird guy said, where Peanut Hamper says, "Sing to me," and he goes, "Caw!"
Oh, Rhoda, sing for me. You scared the living shit out of me.
It's just so random and out there. I don't know. I die at that. That's a joke just lands with me. Weird bird creatures making surprising noises. I die. I didn't know that was a type of humor I wanted, but here you go. But obviously we have our stakes set here because they have to do a solar sailing race, which is very fun. I love the designs of the solar sailing ships. They look very much like the ship from the episode Explorers of Deep Space Nine, as well as similar to the one from Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 1. I want to say it was Spock and Mock had the solar sail ship, which was really beautiful at the end of that episode. So just a nice little, references to some solar sailing stuff within Star Trek. But we have our race going off, and obviously Derica is kick-ass and ready to go out there and take some names of the Blue Orions. But obviously Tendi is very, very scared and wanting to overprotect her. And I like this a lot because it kind of goes to like Derica just kicking ass and wanting to just she's a pregnant woman who happens to kick ass and not falling into those sort of very patriarchal ideas of like womanhood needing to be protected at all times. And Tendi kind of falling into it, but not out of matriarchal or patriarchal concerns, but out of just concern for her sister and wanting her to be safe, which I really liked. Also, something else I should mention, I did want to say this, but I forgot just a second ago. As many of you know, Tendi is my favorite character in Lower Decks and one of my favorite characters in Star Trek, and the fact that she is now becoming an aunt, Auntie Tendi, in this episode, it means a lot to me because I won't go too deep into it, but because he's not a public figure or anything. But my brother is just told me that a few weeks ago that his fiance is also pregnant. So I am also going to be an aunt in the very near future, which I don't know. That obviously warms my heart very, very much. And the fact that one of my favorite characters is also having that happen to her coincidentally within the story. I don't know. That just brings me a lot of joy that I'm sharing a similar life arc as Tendi. That makes me makes me very happy that my favorite character and I are still very aligned in many, many, many different ways. Also, again, I just have to say I still need to do a cosplay of Tendy's Mistress of the Winter Constellations outfit because it's too freaking good. So yeah, I just Tendy is just me. It's just me in the Star Trek universe. If I was in the Star Trek universe, I feel I'd be Tendy in many ways. But yeah, she's overly concerned. There's a bunch of fun jokes here. I love the cutiny that Tendy has everyone on. It's like, why are you being so nice, Derica says. And it's like, just mutiny or not. But ultimately, Derica gets free after the Blue Orions attack them, and she wants to go and board them. And Tendy reveals that she knows she's pregnant, and the Blue Orions shoot them down, and they have a heart-to-heart. And I love that, first off, we learn that a lot of the Orion women were born in the middle of, like, battles and such. Again, pregnant women kicking ass. And her revealing to Tendy that she was keeping it just from Tendy because she didn't want Tendy to have to stay. She wanted her to go back to Starfleet. I thought was really adorable and lovely. Derica is the reason that Tendy was there in the first place, so, kind of her fault to a degree. But I do like that she wants Tendy to go back. And now that I think about it, maybe this is just me kind of off the cuff thinking about it, but maybe that's the connective tissue I needed, where maybe should have been a little bit of like, now that she's back here, I see how much Starfleet means to her, sort of thing. Maybe that could have been like if they had an extra episode to do that storyline, that probably would have been a beat that I think would have made the character shift work. You can imply it a little bit here, but I think that would have been the beat that is slightly missing between these two episodes to make Derica's sort of slight character shift here work better for me. Regardless, still works fine. Tendy does like hooks onto a comet to get the ship off the ground. Thought that was really cool. And they blow up, or at least Tendy blows up the treasure that they have to get, which does not please the Pirate Queen and causes both houses to lose their wealth, which again was a fun little switcheroo, I thought. And again, was the status quo change? I'm like, I would have liked that to stick around. Now, obviously, the episode ends with Tendy's house getting all the money from the capitalist society that was giving up all his gold and jewels from the other part of the episode. And I don't know. There's a part of me that I would have preferred it to they lost their house standing. And that would have been sort of a more interesting place for where we would have to go with Tendy's family if they ever crop back up in this season or wherever, whatever Lower Deck stuff crops up after this season and series comes to an end. But, whatever, not a big deal. But I do like that the Blue Orions are now working for the Tendys. Tendy? Yeah, I guess that's her family name. But yeah, so that is at least some sort of a status quo shift there. But adorable storyline, I thought was wonderful. I love the building between Tendy and her sister. And now we have back to our status quo, which brings me to the second storyline of the episode that I want to talk about, and the one that I thought was cute, but I have one minor issue with it, which is the T'Lyn Rutherford storyline. T'Lyn comes in and asks Rutherford for help learning their science training, her science training. T'Lyn is not non-binary, as much as I would love her to be. But Rutherford is a bit hesitant on that, and T'Lyn sort of stands awkwardly behind him for a very long time, like a Vulcan. Loved that. That was creepy in a Vulcan way. That made sense to me. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's T'Lyn fixes the shuttle. And Rutherford is upset because it was the project that he and Tendy got to work on, and her finishing it, T'Lyn finishing it, means that it sort of he doesn't have this connection to Tendy anymore, which I liked because it's taking advantage of the storyline of what's going on with Tendy being off the ship that we could only do because now Tendy comes back at the end of the episode. We can only do here, and sort of continues Rutherford's friendship with Tendy, which I really find adorable. However, the one element of this that I didn't work for me was, while it is cute that ultimately the end reveal is T'Lyn only chose to do this because she wanted to socialize with Rutherford, and I think that fits T'Lyn's character very well, feels very Vulcan, and yet her wanting to reach out and find friendship. Love that as an arc for T'Lyn. That works. However, what didn't work for me is if that was her reasoning, that she was only doing this just to socialize with Rutherford and break him out of his sort of minor depression spell, or at least isolationist spell with Tendy gone. Why did she then work on the shuttle while Rutherford was asleep? That that didn't work for me. It just sort of, it was a way to get to the point that they wanted Rutherford to be open about and be vulnerable about, but it doesn't make sense given Talin's motivation then. So that was just one little piece that I just thought didn't land as well, just in terms of, connecting the dots. That being said, I also loved in this little bit the quick little beat where Rutherford helps Billups deal with the dragon, which was kind of funny. And Billups doesn't even say anything, just sets on fire and walks away. That was great. So yeah, that storyline I think emotionally landed very well for me, for both Rutherford and Talin, and is taking advantage of the slight status quo shift here with Tendi being gone. But there's just a little logistical thing in there that I think could have been smoothed over or done a little bit differently. Like maybe, I don't know, Talin, kind of still forces Rutherford to keep working on the shuttle. She doesn't fix it, but she sort of keeps working on him. He gets angry at her or like opens up to her at that point instead of her just finishing it on her own. But yeah, it doesn't land much. That being said, Talin at the end, breaking the shuttle was also very adorable. Like dropping the piece when Tendi comes back in. Liked that quite a bit. But this brings me to my second favorite storyline of the episode, which is everything on the planet that is getting rid of capitalism. All the jokes doing with that were really, really fun. Like, why are we in line? And there's no, everything's free now. And just the Museum of Friendship getting built and just like them getting rid of money. All of it was just very fun. The t-shirts were great. Just all the background jokes involving that was fun. But this does lead us to the main point of the episode, which is Boimler is growing a beard, and we clearly get hints that he is following along with the biography of the other Boimler that we saw in the premiere episode. So that's probably going to be Boimler's arc going forward, where he is trying to figure out what his command style is. Like last season was Boimler figuring out that he can have confidence in being a commander. Now it's figuring out what his style of command is going to be, which feels like a natural arc, and him trying to build off of what the other Boimler did instead of finding his own. And so, him trying to do the bointers was very, very adorable and fun. And the ensign sort of like ribbing him jokingly, but not disrespectfully. And Boimler sort of like being like, I'll be the fun boss at Mariner's prompting. And Mariner being like, oh, I didn't expect you to do that. I was just joking, was very, very fun. But the fact that the ensigns under Boimler got kidnapped by robber barons also kind of goes to what I was talking about before when I was being over-intellectualizing, that like, yeah, they didn't necessarily as a society get rid of capitalism. They just sort of technologically evolved out of it, I guess, or got like, technology that made it obsolete. And so the robber barons are still very upset by that and are kidnapping people to, I guess I don't really know what their aim was, just to try and get money and ransom people. I love when, just to get a couple jokes here, like with Boimler keep using the same comm badge as Mariner and Ransom being like, do you need your own comm badge, buddy? And then also Boimler getting on the speeder bike sort of thing the wrong way. Also very funny. And then them going to the Knives Out looking mansion where they kidnap the ensigns. And we have these like giant chess piece looking droids that were supposed to be like the gardening or housekeeping robots that have been programmed for violence. And he's like, the like little minor just background gag of this one robot being like, I'm a gardener. I like my programming's messed up. I've been programmed to mow, not murder. And then at the end, it's like, oh, I should have watered them when they find the ensign's dead. And he has sort of like this mini arc of like, I will renounce my ways. And Mariner's just like, oh, I'm glad you had a little story there, buddy. Very, very funny. And then they find like I said, they find the ensign's dead, and so the robber barons run away, which I did like them, Boimler pointing out, is like, you're going to be arrested by Starfleet, so you'll be poor and imprisoned by space aliens, and them just saying, we'll learn to live off the grid, and getting away, adorable, but then the ensign's revealing, again, adorably, that they did follow Boimler's pointers, and that they were listening despite their jokes, and it actually helped them escape the situation, despite the fact that they're upset that Boimler won't let them keep playing along, so I adored all of that storyline. The only criticism that I would have here is we do have a line from Mariner saying like, oh, I was wanting to hang out with you because I've been so busy and I haven't been able to hang out with my friends as much, which I don't think lands as well, mostly just because we haven't seen Mariner be busy. We've gone right from premiere to this episode. Again, it feels like there's a missing episode in there where like Mariner has been separated from everyone else. Now, we saw a little bit of that last season with the episode, it wasn't Caves. It was the episode, well, maybe it was Caves. I don't remember. It was the episode where, Yeah, no, it was Caves, because Caves also had a similar thing where they hadn't seen each other in a while. They were stuck in a cave, and they were telling stories of their adventures with other crews. So we got a little bit of that, like, I haven't seen my friends in a while last season, but it just kind of starting at that idea on episode 2 with Mariner, where we haven't really seen that as much, given, like, she was just given the assignment of the ensigns last episode, I think doesn't make that particular beat for Mariner as a character land as hard as it could have had we had an episode where she was separated out from the crew a little bit more than she was. So again, it's nothing wrong with this episode necessarily. It's just like little things where I'm like, there's an episode missing here to sort of connect some of these characterization ideas in my brain. But it works just fine enough on its own merits. So yeah, I think that's overall my thoughts on this episode. This was another great one. I am adoring this season so far. I definitely want one of those shirts. So hopefully, I think. If you don't know, Titmouse, they do Lower Decks t-shirts for every episode of Lower Decks, and they've had 44 of them now, and they have 10 more for this season. And I have a decent chunk of them, not all of them, because dear God, I don't need that many t-shirts, but I have a good chunk of them, and I buy the ones that I enjoy. So if that was the t-shirt they reveal for this episode, I will be buying it. So save one for me, please. Thank you. All that being said, I think that's everything I have for this episode. What did you think of it? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to, again, be loud about getting Lower Decks Season 5 as high a ratings as possible so we can see more Lower Decks in the future, with it being, whatever they hopefully have planned, even though it has been canceled. But beyond all of that, my friends, I hope you all live long and prosper.